Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Online Plans. How are you? So in today's video, we're going to have some fun. We're going to be talking about anything and everything, I guess. Fountain pens. We're doing the hashtag 8 pen questions tag that was originally started by Simone and Leanne Likes. So thank you first of all for starting this conversation with talking about fountain pens. And so that's kind of essentially what we're going to be up to today. We're going to kind of go through all the questions and I'll give you a little bit of a background about my fountain pen journey. So let's get started. So let's start with question number 1. When and how did your fountain pen journey begin? My fountain pen journey is actually fairly recent. It's maybe about a year in of me using fountain pens. I'm fairly new to the community, but I always had like this fascination with pens. So the fascination with pens has started a lot earlier than my love for fountain pens. Honestly, it was always a community that I would kind of look from the outside in, and I didn't really get it until I actually bought my first fountain pen. So it's one of those things where I always had really a hard time finding the right pens and just the right fit, because I'm left-handed, so I don't consider me being left-handed to be like a negative thing by any means, but it definitely affected the way that I choose pens and the way that I have preferences over certain pens that I enjoy using. Okay, favorite inks, how did that start and when? No, now and then. Okay, so favorite pens. Then when I started last year, I went a little bananas with Ferris wheel press. I think that I don't know, there's something about like how the bottles look. I really got fascinated with the fact that like you can get like shimmering inks where it like changes color, and so I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a little bit. So I accumulated a lot of Ferris wheel press inks, and I would be sort of like the first one to buy like the latest releases, and I would always buy like full bottles until I realized that I could actually just buy like little samples, and then that kind of changed everything. Now honestly my preferences has kind of shifted more back to basics, because I really enjoy having really beautiful basic colors. And even within that, so looking at, you know, like the navies, and like even within like the different opacity of blue, there's such a different variation, and that kind of changes the feel of how the ink looks on the paper, and also how I feel about that ink when I'm writing with it, right? So when I'm using it. So to me, with inks, my preference does change. It definitely shifts from season to season, 100%. But right now, my absolute favorites have to be the guitar fountain pen ink. I will just pop a picture here on the screen. And I'm gravitating more towards some of the basic colors currently, more than I am to some of the funky colors. But I do enjoy buying a few just unique shades that will still look beautiful when you're writing with it, but it also looks really beautiful when you're sketching with it. So that's my answer to that. Number 3, ink and pen taste. How has it changed over time? Honestly, when I started purchasing fountain pen inks, I didn't really know sort of what to expect, or honestly, my pen taste hasn't really changed all that much, but what has changed is the type of inks that I would load into certain pens. What do I mean? At first, I would just buy whatever pen everyone else was kind of talking about. So if people were talking about the Lamy, I would buy the Lamy. If people were talking about the TWSBI Eco Diamond, I would buy that. And if people were talking about like, oh, this is a great beginner pen, just buy the Kaweco Sport. And I did purchase those, and I do enjoy using them. But honestly, I find that like I'm really happy with fine nib pens, first of all, and second, I'm just a lot more cautious about putting certain colored inks, especially darker colored inks, into a fine nib pen, because then I understand that I will actually see more of that darker color rather than rather than getting the richness of the color. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I'm putting in one of the darker navy colors into a fine nip Kaweco Sport, then I'm actually going to see more of a variation of that color rather than just the richness of the deep navy. And I really enjoy that, because then it just gives me more confidence to purchase darker colors and load them into a fine nip pen, and I can actually see the variations of the colors. And it's just like, to me, that just becomes kind of an exciting venture, because then I don't have to feel like everything will come out like black or like a dark purple. So hopefully that makes sense. Inks and pens. Okay, so question number 4, inks and pens you haven't tried but would like to. Honestly, right now I have a fascination with Sailor. I think that Sailor is one of those really popular pens that is really well accepted within the fountain pen community and within the planning community. And honestly, I would love to at least buy one. I don't consider myself like a pen hoarder, and it does become quite expensive of a hobby for me to just continually purchase pens and inks all the time. So the one that I would really like to try right now is the Pilot Vanishing Point and the Sailor, literally like any of the Sailor ones, but I will just pop the picture on here. I can't remember the name of the one, but I would like to just at least try one Sailor pen, because I feel like the writing experience will be so different from like a Kaweco or even from a TWSBI. Let's go to number 5, Holy Grail pens. Honestly, if you would have asked me this question about a week ago, I would have said that is the TWSBI Diamond Eco, but unfortunately that pen has broken. The pen didn't break. Let me correct that. So the pen didn't break, but the cap and the ring around the cap that would allow you to twist on the cap onto the pen, that kind of got glued together, and it glued right onto the pen, so therefore the pen becomes unusable. So unfortunately I did lose that pen. So right now I'm really actually enjoying the Ferris wheel press carousel. So these are like the fine nip pens, and I have this in, I think it's rose, or like it's like this mauve color. It's really pretty. It writes beautifully. So their fine nip pens are fantastic. It writes a little bit finer than the Kaweco Sport in my opinion, but I mean from Kaweco I have like at least 3 or 4 colors, so obviously that's sort of very close to my heart. I find like I love that chubby feel, and I also love the fact that it's just a very good, reliable, easy on the go fountain pen, and I don't really have to worry about it. So I love both of them equally. Let's talk about how many pens do you currently own? I think I own 8. I think I own 8. I have like 3 or 4 colors of the Kaweco Sport. I have the Ferris wheel, and I have two TWSBIs. No, 2 Lammies. Yeah, about 7 or 8 pens in total. I own about 7 or 8 fountain pens, and some of it I actually just distribute to my kids so that they can use them, because I don't need like 10 pens. I would love to, well, we'll go on to the next question in a second, but yeah, I own 8 pens and I'm good with it. Do you have a limit on pens or inks in your collection? Number, is it a feeling, or when do you know you reached it? Honestly, yes and no. I've started to like assign certain pens to certain planners or journals, so that I have started to do, because otherwise like sometimes I just kind of forget which ink is loaded in. But there are certain pens that I would love to have, and I want them to sort of like, some of the more expensive pens, I would love it if it would become sort of like my holy grail, like it's my everyday pen that I use all the time. But I don't have like a particular limit on how many pens I have. I think that with certain ones, like with some of the Lammies that are not being used as often, I will eventually just kind of sell them or gift them to someone. I don't know, like I don't want fountain pens to become another one of those things, just like with stickers or with planners, where it just becomes like an outlet for me to accumulate things. So I would love it for me to just continue to enjoy them and and just kind of, but also make sure that I end up using what I already have, versus just feeling like I have to like buy more because it's the latest color, it's the latest collection. So I go for more of like, will these be, like, I kind of filter my decision through whether I need a new pen or not. I kind of filter that through the idea of, will this actually be useful, or am I just purchasing this because I kind of feel compelled to buy a new one because it's a new release. So I've been really working hard on really focusing on buying the thing that is sort of like aiding my expansion, so to say, versus just buying it because I feel that pressure from society that I should consume more. And I feel like that about inks as well. I mean, inks, it's a little bit different because given that if I have the opportunity to just buy samples, I'm okay with just buying samples. With certain inks though, I'm really happy to just buy the full bottle ink. But when it comes to being part of the community, there is definitely, I mean, like, we can go down the whole rabbit hole of, you know, stationary consumerism, but I will just say that internally, I always just want to, whatever I'm purchasing, I want that to be more of an intentional purchase rather than a really reactive or more of a consumerism based purchase, if that makes sense. And I feel like that about inks as well, but inks, I'm a little bit more loosey-goosey with it because you use up the inks. So I also kind of make sure that, you know, I give myself the opportunity to enjoy the inks that I have, because each ink will look also different in the different pens. So I guess in a way I'm more inclined to buy a couple of extra pens, not from the same brand anymore, but just kind of venture out into different brands, because that gives me the opportunity for me to use up my inks a lot faster. So hopefully that makes sense. But honestly, like, I've been really teaching myself in the last year to not really rely heavily on just consuming more, but really learn to enjoy the items that I have, whether it's the pens or it's the new colored inks or like whatever it is. It's such a practice. It's an ongoing check-in with myself to make sure that I'm not purchasing things because I feel the pressure to buy it, but I want to purchase the things so that, you know, like, I actually have like an intention of using it. So, okay, and number 8, what would you do if another pen or ink came along? Honestly, again, like, that just kind of goes back to my, it just goes back to my previous answer. I really am learning to do, honestly, what I would actually do is I would go to my nearest pen store and I would probably take a look at it, see if it's in alignment for me, and try it out. But honestly, like, it's one of those things where, I don't know, I'm learning to, I'm learning to be okay with not accumulating everything, because I realize that I don't need everything, and I know that it's aiding the hobby, but I don't need to constantly feed it all the time. I think part of the beautiful part about this hobby is not so much about like buying the thing, but about learning how to use it and how to enjoy it, more than just about accumulating more because it's something new and shiny just came out. But there's definitely, I definitely see that there's a pressure around that, because all it takes is scrolling through Instagram and you see someone else use the latest thing or the latest color release or a new ink or whatever, and then you immediately think, oh my gosh, I should have that. But I've been finding that, especially with Ferris Wheel Press, is one of those inks where I've been finding that even though I bought the inks that I thought that would make me so happy, and those emotions are so temporary, because I just find that it doesn't work the way that I was hoping it would. I can't actually use it. It's not as versatile of an ink as I hope it would be, but it looked really beautiful in the bottle and it looked really beautiful as a swatch. So I'm sort of at a point where like I'm spending more time on reflecting, and I'm definitely a lot slower at purchasing a new ink or a new pen, because again, like it becomes really pricey, and it's just, it's one of those things where I want to make sure that it's actually the right fit, and I'm not buying it because I feel influenced or compelled or because it's a new release, but I'm buying the ink or I'm buying the actual pen because it's actually something that will work for me. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of this. I do think that it's an awesome hobby, but I think that with anything, like, I think that you need to kind of find your own happy medium and your own balance of how much do you actually need for you to be content, and at how much time are you actually going to spend on enjoying the things that you do accumulate. I do want to get into a point where if I'm buying newer pens, or if I'm buying heavier pens, or if my preference changes, then I'm also finding a new home for the ones that I have used, because I think that I'm just giving the opportunity for someone else to also get enjoyment out of it. So whether I gift it or I sell it, whatever it is, I think that I'm learning more to not become a hoarder versus just kind of keep my stash at fairly minimum. I wanted to thank you ladies for creating this tag. I so appreciate this. This is so fun, and I think that it really opens up like how each of us approach fountain pens. So thank you so much for creating the tag. And of course, if you haven't seen the tag, I will just leave it right on the screen, and I will also tag everyone that I know would also be up for doing the challenge with me or doing the tag with me. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up, you can subscribe, do all of the things, and I cannot wait to see you guys in my next video.